Welcome to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show. With the Brexit transition period just 5 weeks away, the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey has warned that a no-deal exit would leave worse long-term economic scarring in the UK than the damage caused by the coronavirus. I'll be discussing the other Brexit flashpoints of the week with our business correspondent Simon Pusey. Plus, I'll be joined by the managing director of the ETK Group, Bolaji Sofolue, who will give us an idea of how the business community are faring. Then later, Owen Odia, the Nigerian manager of the leading global cryptocurrency company Ludo, will be joining me to discuss some of the findings from their recent Trust and Uncertainty report, which suggests that Nigerians are ready to formally adopt digital currencies. But now over to our first topic, Brexit. The President of the European Commission told the European Parliament earlier this week that major gaps could still lead to a rough split in trade with Britain past December the 31st, an eventuality that she says the bloc was preparing for.
The European Union is well prepared for a no-deal scenario, but of course we prefer to have an agreement. I fully trust in the skillful steer of our chief negotiator, Michel Barnier. But one thing is clear. Whatever the outcome, there has to be, and there will be, a clear difference between being a full member of the Union and being just a valued partner. However, there are still three issues that can make the difference between a deal and no deal. The crucial topics for the European side are, of course, questions linked to the level playing field, the governance and fisheries. And with very little time ahead of us, we will do all in our power to reach an agreement. We're ready to be creative, but we are not ready to put into question the integrity of the single market.
Then this from the British Cabinet Minister, Michael Gove.
We have a very strong, very able negotiating team under David Frost, and they are working round the clock to secure the very best deal for the United Kingdom. We've got clear red lines, and we won't cross them. But I hope that we will be able to secure a good deal with the European Union. But it's important to recognise that the European Union needs to move as well, and it needs to acknowledge that we voted to take back control. And that's the most important thing. I think that as the clock ticks down, minds are concentrated. I'm sure it will be the case that our friends in the European Union will recognise that it's emphatically in their interests to secure a deal as well.
Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by our business correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, Brexit face-to-face negotiations were cut short because of coronavirus. Have we moved any forward since then?
Yeah, so physical talks, as you said, were put on hold after one of the EU negotiating team was tested positive for coronavirus. That meant that Michel Barnier had to go into isolation. They did, of course, continue over technology and laptops and computers, etc. But that's another blockage that we didn't really need when we're up against it in terms of time. Michel Barnier is expected to come out of isolation this week and return to London. They're trying to hammer out a deal by next week, which now seems pretty impossible, but at least sometime next week they're going to try and get some kind of a deal so that they can try and aim for an emergency sitting on the 28th of December to try and push this through the European Parliament and to try and get everything ratified. So it's a huge ask, but that's not really what we needed. Ursula von der Leyen has said the EU is willing to be creative. She said this in the last few hours to get a deal with the UK, and she's trying to get MEPs within Brussels on side, just in case there is the potential of any kind of deal, to try and get them warmed up to appreciate that a compromise needs to be made from their side. Joe Biden, obviously now that sort of confirmed as the US president, he has again come out and said that he doesn't want a hard border in Ireland. Obviously, he has Irish heritage. He told journalists in Wilmington in Delaware, we do not want a guarded border across Ireland. And that's something he said time and time again. And it seems like he's on the EU side when it comes to the UK government playing fast and loose with the rules, and certainly with the Irish agreement and the peace deal in Ireland. And finally, sausages. That's a big one, isn't it? That's one we're all worried about. Irish sausages and German bratwurst are set to disappear from British supermarkets in a new blow to trade, it is feared, according to newspapers, that is. That's very journalese in newspapers. But yeah, there's a few questions about different types of foods and whether foods are going to be able to be imported from the UK into Ireland and from Europe into the UK. And I think the negotiators are sort of trying to hammer that out. But those are kind of obviously of lesser importance. I would say that we don't really have too many big updates to say this week. Other than, talks are ongoing. Michel Barnier is expected to come back to London. They are still trying to get a deal. But I think the main thrust of things from the EU perspective is they're worried that British businesses are going to have the upper hand if compromises are made. As it stands, this is what the UK side are trying to do. They're trying to get an upper hand in fisheries, not allow EU fishing boats into UK waters, and also on competitiveness within business. So let's see how things sort of shake up early next week. But it looks like the EU negotiating team are going to be back, and I'm sure it's going to be more of the same.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Simon, but with just 5 weeks to go, will there be a deal? Are we going to crash out?
I would still say that it's sort of 60-40 there will be a deal, just because I think the will is there on both sides, even though it probably doesn't appear like the will is there on the UK side. I think that's their kind of strategy, is to do brinkmanship right up to the last hour. And we've seen that with the government in sort of various other ways. But I think both sides do want to get a deal, particularly as Joe Biden is now the president in the US, particularly because of the way the economy is shaking up for the UK in coronavirus times. And we've just heard some pretty bad figures from Rishi Sunak in terms of unemployment potentially next year. So I think the will is definitely there on both sides. It's just, can it happen?
Thank you, Simon. Staying with Britain, according to the country's Office for National Statistics, 1 in 7 businesses was teetering on the brink of collapse even before the new lockdown in England came into force at the start of November. The lockdown will expire next week. However, fears of a no-deal Brexit still dominate the sentiment for tens of thousands of business owners. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Bolaji Sofoluwe, founder and managing director of the Africa-focused business consultancy firm Enterprise Trade and Knowledge. Bolaji Sofoluwe, thank you so much for joining me once again on Channels Business Global. My goodness, it's been a really tough year. I think we spoke before the pandemic had really took a grip on the economy. I know you speak to businesses constantly. How are they faring?
Well, it's been really interesting. A lot of businesses have actually started thinking about how they need to fix their resilience plans, just getting a lot better at responding to shocks and responding to disruptions, such as what we've seen with COVID-19. And I've been doing quite a lot of support in this area, particularly along supply chains and other areas, particularly for companies that export or import from Africa. And it's been quite an interesting, rough and rocky road for a lot of companies, actually. And some companies have thrived, actually, through it all.
Oh, absolutely. When there's a downturn, there are always going to be winners and losers. It's just a shame, particularly in Britain. I think they're projecting that the economy is going to contract by 10%, much more than our European counterparts. And, bringing in Europe, earlier this week, Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England governor, did say that if we crash out of the transition period at the end of this year, the economic consequences will be much further, much worse than the pandemic. I know ETK, the consultancy firm that you run, talks to businesses about moving in to Africa. Do you think Brexit has made more businesses who wouldn't necessarily look at Africa head there just because of fear?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of businesses are beginning to really consider their options. And as you know, prior to this time, at the beginning of this year with the Africa Investment Summit, a lot of people started to buy into this brand of Global Britain, the Global Britain brand that was actually started by Theresa May's government. People are beginning to realize that there are opportunities out there. But I will say that there are some businesses that are very worried about the risk exposure where it comes to going into Africa and are ready to face whatever consequences they have to face to continue to export to the EU as their first priority. The other thing is, obviously, when we're advising companies, we sort of have to tell them that Africa is not a short, it's not a short runway at all. You really do have to sort of plan in the with the long term in mind. And so that has actually been quite an interesting curve for some of these businesses where they're actually looking to go to Africa, but they really need to create a lot of strategy around it. And that's what we're helping them with.
Absolutely. You know, I know they use you to hold their hand through the process. I think we did discuss this the last time you were on, but just to remind some of our viewers, you know, when a British business is looking to invest in Africa, are the concerns the same old stereotypical concerns about security, about bad governance, about corruption? I don't put them lightly. Those are serious issues. But are they the same, or have they evolved over the years?
Well, they are the same. I think, because those problems persist in quite a number of markets, and actually the very important markets. But what it has really changed is perception. Obviously, there's a lot more content out there that talks about the continent. There's a lot more sort of studies that are going on in major educational institutions around the opportunities on the continent that are currently untapped. The draw of the opportunity is a lot stronger than anything else because there is no other part on Earth, a place on Earth where you have 400 million young people, where you have all the known natural resources in the world deposited, and where you have actually the rise of new sectors such as media and film and business process outsourcing and IT. It's a world of opportunity, so people can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, it is unavoidable, isn't it? Let's talk about the UK Africa Investment Summit. You mentioned it previously. Of course, it was just, gosh, that's when everybody could shake hands and gather. We're a long way from that. There are so many promises and plans. I know most of them have obviously been halted because people haven't been able to travel. But have you seen a change in culture or change in sentiment towards Africa following the UK Africa Investment Summit? And just remind me about some of the stuff that the ETK group were involved in.
Well, we were very much involved, particularly in the agribusiness processing area of the Africa Investment Summit, because we actually feel that adding value to African products is one of the areas that UK businesses can actually get involved with. Like I said, I really feel there needs to be a sophisticated approach to Africa investment going forward. And obviously with the new Africa free trade area, I feel that there are even more opportunities because that is going to simplify things like the rules of origin and all other sort of opportunities that presents. And as the UK is leaving the EU, one other bloc is being created at the same time. And so I think there are great opportunities for businesses still, and that sentiment remains. However, I think people went into sort of protection mode during COVID. How can we keep our businesses alive, let alone going into new markets? And so a lot of businesses were pivoting, so creating new product lines. A lot of other businesses were thinking about how they could protect their people. So this year, I think export strategy has taken a little bit of a back burner, but people are still very much interested in going into the continent.
Bolaji Shofoluwe, the Managing Director of the very successful consultancy firm, the ETK Group. Thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global.
Thank you so much for having me, Juliana. Thank you.
Coming up on Channels Business Global, I'll be speaking with Owen Odia about the uptake of global digital currencies on the continent. See you after the break. Welcome back to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be speaking with Owen Odia about global digital currencies. But before then, here's some company news for you. JD Sports is reportedly engaged in exclusive discussions with Debenhams over a deal to rescue the entire business from administration. According to the Times newspaper, it's understood that the sportswear retailer is interested in acquiring all of Debenhams' businesses, which would include 12,000 staff and 124 shops. JD Sports' executive chairman Peter Cogwell is said to be interested in the offer thanks to Debenhams' incredibly popular website and the fact a deal would mean acquiring relatively cheap property on the high streets across the UK. Big name players in the UK food industry have come out against a plan by the government that may see all online junk food advertising banned in a bid to tackle childhood obesity. A letter sent to Prime Minister Boris Johnson from a cohort of firms including Britvic, Kellogg's and Mars said they supported efforts to tackle obesity, but plans were disproportionate and lacking in evidence. The plan may usher in some of the world's toughest digital marketing restrictions, which would hit by the end of 2022. The world's largest maker of latex gloves will shut more than half of its factories after almost 2,500 employees tested positive for coronavirus. Malaysia's Top Glove will close down 28 plants in phases as it seeks to control the outbreak. The company has seen a huge surge in demand for its personal protective gear since the start of the pandemic. However, there have been concerns about the working conditions of the low-paid migrant workers it relies upon. It is unclear when the factory closures will begin, but they are scheduled to take place in stages. Now, over to our next topic. Luno is a leading global cryptocurrency company with over 5 million customers in 40 countries. They've just produced their annual Trust and Uncertainty report with some key findings that suggest 59% of Nigerians are ready to adopt a global digital currency. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Luno's country manager, Owen Odia, who joins us from Abidjan. Owen Odia, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. Well, Africa's biggest economy is in a recession officially. Do Nigeria's latest GDP figures tally with some of the findings from your latest report?
Thank you very much. I mean, the global pandemic has affected GDP globally, the growth of GDP globally, so it's not peculiar to Nigeria. I mean, the GDP determines the health of an economy, right? So with the pandemic, there's been lockdown restrictions, industry closed down. So, and the most recent survey we just carried out is sort of asked Nigerians with respect to employment. So unemployment rate has increased by 30%. So the survey just shows that increase in unemployment rate due to the COVID pandemic, basically. So yes, it's impacted the GDP of the economy.
I've got to say, I was actually pretty surprised at the findings suggesting 59% of Nigerians that you spoke to are ready to adopt a global digital currency. Why do you think that is? Because I would say that's pretty much a very high number.
Yes, it is. So this just shows that 59% of Nigerians are interested. They understand crypto adoption. And I think it impacts, there's been a global increase in crypto adoption. So it's not just peculiar to Nigeria. It's just that seeing Nigeria being the largest economy in the continent, and then when it comes to technology, we're at the forefront. It's only normal that there should be like an increased interest in the Nigerian economy. So think about globally, there's been an increase in use case for crypto adoption. There's lots of institutional investors thinking of coming into the crypto space, and then PayPal recently announcing that they're going to give their customers access to cryptocurrency. I think that was what has sort of affected crypto adoption, right? And then Google Trends, we had Google Trends in 2019 and 2020. The search for Bitcoin has been on the rise, most especially in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana. So I think this just shows that, I mean, there's been a use case for crypto adoption in Nigeria, and that's what had affected the increase.
Absolutely. You know, I remember even throwing back to the EndSARS protests a couple of weeks ago. A lot of the campaigners that were leading the donations were doing it via Bitcoin, and it even was endorsed by Jack Dorsey. But nevertheless, there is still an air of, I would say, people are a little bit suspicious about cryptocurrencies, particularly in the global north and where I am in London. How do companies like yours, Luno, and others demystify some of those? Some of them could be myths, some of them could be anxieties about whether they can swap their hard-earned cash for a digital coin.
Thank you very much. I think what we do as a company, Lino, we understand that cryptocurrency sounds very technical as it is, right? And then a lot of people are interested, but they're scared that, okay, so what is this? What am I getting into? So what we do as a company, we're focused on education. So what we're doing is trying to educate customers, create awareness around crypto adoption, the use case for crypto from trading to remittances, for micropayments to savings. So I think with that, it will definitely let people be more comfortable to play in that space. Cryptocurrency, if not properly studied, can sound very, very technical. But to be honest, it's just like the internet. It's pretty much easy to use when you get the hang of it.
Gosh, you say that. Some of us are getting a bit old. I don't know if it is that easy. But how has COVID-19 changed the sector? Not everybody has been a loser during the pandemic. There have been some winners. Have you seen more of an uptake? Some people are even suggesting that Africa could be the headquarters of global cryptocurrencies because of the young population. And as you were rightly saying about, using the internet, some young people are seeing, using a cryptocurrency, just a byplay of that.
Yes, so I think in Africa, we have a very high young population between the ages of 18 to 35. And then when it comes to technology, they are very vast. We have an already existing mobile population. What I mean by that is people are already used to mobile apps. I mean, from banks that you have mobile application, people are already used to the internet. So I think that has sort of helped them understand this cryptocurrency. But in Nigeria, for instance, I think with the pandemic, we've seen an increase in interest, right? And this may be due to the fact that crypto, as it is, was created to be largely uncorrelated with the traditional assets, which is doing very well. So it's actually making people aware of this, and people do not want to miss out on it. From the trading meet, people understand that when they trade cryptocurrency, they can make money, and then they can use it for remittances and the likes. And then also with the lockdown, it has sort of provided people with more time to think about how they can make the most of their money and allow them to learn crypto. Ultimately, the global uncertainty is forcing people to look beyond trying ways, managing their money, and it's causing an entirely new audience in that space. For Luno, in Nigeria, for instance, we've seen an increase. Our customers sign up have increased. Over 500,000 people have come on the platform within the last 2 quarters. So we've recorded the highest number of active users. So I think I would say that this COVID pandemic has given people they've had a lot of time to sort of think about how to learn, make the most of their money and to learn about crypto.
Owen, we're running out of time, but if you can very briefly before we go. So let's say somebody like me or one of our viewers does want to invest, if that's the right word, in a cryptocurrency. How do you go about doing it, and how much does it cost?
Okay, so for cryptocurrency, it's what we advise is to learn about it, education. That's why Luno as a company, we're focused on educating customers in new technology. And people see the price of one Bitcoin at $18,000 to $20,000 and get scared. But the thing about cryptocurrency is that you can actually get a fraction of it. So you can buy a fraction. So if you want to start investing in cryptocurrency, you can start with as little as 10,000 Naira, which is a Nigerian currency. So yes, it's the most important thing is do your education. And then when you're comfortable, you can start cryptocurrency. It's pretty cool.
Education is key. I was thinking of starting a TikTok account this weekend. It could be instead a global cryptocurrency like Luno. Owen Odia, you're in Abidjan, but you are the country manager for Nigeria of Luno. Thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global.
Thank you for having me.
Sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.